This is the Becoming Love podcast with Michael Rose.
Hey everybody, it's Michael. Thank you so much for joining me. Ready to lay down another podcast to share a few ideas for you. Coming from the Corn Cob City in the middle of March winter. But good news is I think the weather is set to warm up. So that's going to be really good news. Just finished an interesting podcast with a young fella who's just getting his podcast up and going. He's in the process of getting everything all set up and getting ready here to launch here in the next little bit. So it was a great conversation with him. We got to talk about open relational theology. We got to talk about evolution and science. We got to talk about Teilhard de Chardin. And most of all, we got to talk about love in the mixture of all that. So it was really great to be able to do that. Yeah, so today I want to talk about something. I've talked about this before with respect to grief, and it's this whole idea of friendly fire. But I wanted to take it from a different perspective here. And that's something that many of us could experience in our normal day-to-day kind of thing. And depending upon the bumps and bruises that we have in our own life, we can be more susceptible to this than, say, other people at different times. But, you know, one of my struggles has always been feeling like I'm misunderstood. And as such, I've developed a propensity to over-explain in effort to reduce that. Sometimes I over-explain too much, talk about beating a dead horse. I've worked over the years to reduce this need to over-explain, and I am making good progress. But sometimes there's a snag, and I'm realizing that it still needs more practice. Sometimes there's just this odd person in my life, often a person of goodwill, who makes a whole bunch of wild-ass assumptions based on preconceived ideas about me. And they miss the mark. They totally misunderstand who I am by a prairie mile. Now remember, assume, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. But these assumptions are based on how they see the world through their own blind spots without context. So it's like them saying, from that Bible parable, here, let me take that sliver out of your eye while you're staring at the obvious plank in their life. But nonetheless, we do have to be aware. Everything we know conditions how we approach new information or experience. And all facts come with a point of view. And I think that we need to hold on to that, particularly when we are going to assume and judge other people. Now, I want to say that most times these people aren't trying to be jerks. They're really trying to be nice. They're trying to offer a bit of insight. The other thing I noticed, though, in these interactions is that quickly that if you protest, try to correct or explain or, provide some context, then immediately they assume that you're defensive. So you can tell that they're committed to their anemic analysis, and they probably don't even know that it's anemic. And it's also a good indication that they're probably closed to any new information that doesn't support their judgment. And that can be really tough. This is a risk of being genuine and vulnerable with people because you will be misunderstood. You will be judged incorrectly and unfairly. And I want to stress this, by well-intentioned people, by friends, by family. I'm surely, to goodness, we might even be them, but surely we know people who just have to help. They just absolutely have to help. They absolutely have to give you their wisdom. They absolutely have to give you some insight, even when their help is unsolicited. Sometimes our legitimate normal emotions, hurt and indignation, are used as ammunition in their assessment. And unfortunately, sometimes it's kind of gaslighting. And I think oftentimes, truth be told, these folks are projecting their own journey, their own bumps, their own bruises, their own way of seeing through working through the stuff, like their own baggage. They're projecting that on us. You know, for example, someone reads an article on the web about narcissistic personalities, and now they're diagnosing everyone they come across as narcissistic. So it's challenging, especially when there's those of us who maybe identify as highly sensitive people, people who are empathetic, people who want to live into the genuine, and want to risk the vulnerability that goes on with that. We risk the opportunity of friendly fire, also not so friendly fire, but that's another podcast. I find too with folks who are friendly firing that if they're a little bit insecure, they can be more concerned with appearing enlightened as a healer than truly empathizing and understanding the situation. In a sense, their need to be seen in a certain light betrays a sincere desire and gifting to help. I'm learning that in such instances, I listen carefully, graciously, to what's being said. I remind myself that most times people speak, they judge as they are not as things are. Remember Job's friends? I choose to believe that they are often well-intentioned, and sometimes I have to be pretty dogmatic with myself, and especially when it hurts. I ask myself if what they're saying is accurate. Is there any truth to what they're saying? Is there something I need to consider? And if so, what gift can be received, and which things don't I have to receive? And then choose to let that stuff go. I keep a smile on my face as I listen to them, and I genuinely try to thank them for their care and their thoughts. But I've learned not to give into their fear, or into my fear, I guess, of being misunderstood. Because as I respond to that fear and act out of that fear of being misunderstood, it often leads to the person doubling down on their original judgment. I'm also learning that I don't have to accept everyone's judgment and assessment of me. I'm discovering afresh through the eyes of love that my value is not based on my ability to meet others' expectations, that I'm not bound by their opinions, even when they're well-intended. Friends, friendly fire is just a fact of life. And I think part of it is that we need to establish some healthy boundaries and understand that not everyone in our life, everyone that crosses our path, has earned the right to speak into our lives. Not everybody has the same access to our life. I appreciate some may say that they love me, and they probably do, but I'm more interested in the feedback of people I share life with, those who through the day-to-day have earned the right by demonstrating love, and more likely to have a better assessment to be able to speak into my life. And it's here I'm much more likely to find wisdom and insight. So for me today, the takeaway is you don't have to explain yourself to every person who has an opinion of you, nor do you have to accept every unsolicited analysis, even from a friend. You are free to accept any legitimate gift while being free to let go of that which doesn't fit. Remember, we're under no obligation to accept bad gifts, regardless of the good intention of the giver. Thanks so much, friends. Take good care.
For more, visit IamSignificant.ca. Music is composed by Jacob Rose, and please remember to like and subscribe to our podcast.